Montes Sabonis puts up a dominating double-double. Chris Duarte sets a rookie record, but all of that is not enough as the Pacers fall the Charlotte Hornets 123 to 122. We'll talk about that and more coming up on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in to the fifth season of the Locked On Pacers podcast. That is our fifth NBA season. My name is Adam Friedman, as always, the host of this wonderful podcast. And joining me on the other line, looks like his mic might still be muted, Mr. Tony East from Forbes.com and the West Side Indianapolis News. He's laughing there too because he's got some hot takes as the Pacers fall to the Hornets 123-122 in the season opener.
Adam just saved me from first game of the season embarrassment with a muted mic, but that would have been fitting after that Pacers performance to start off the podcast extremely poorly. Well, I guess the Pacers started off pretty well, but maybe about 3/4 of the way through this podcast, I will stumble and accidentally mute my mic. Adam.
Yeah, so on today's show, we're going to obviously break down the Pacers' first game of the season. We'll have some overreactions to end this show to kind of become a yearly tradition of ours to overreact to the first game. Usually we're, about half right about our reactions, half wrong? Usually somewhere. Not all of them are wrong.
Less than half right, but not too much less, I would say.
Not too much, but I think the first place to start in this game is something positive I'm going to go with.
I did not want to do that, but that's fine.
I think we should because this was probably like the most exciting debut of a player since like I think Miles Turner in 2015 when he stepped in the starting lineup and played pretty well, at least in like most anticipated debut of a player, I think, in a long time for the Pacers just because we weren't sure what he could do. And that's Chris Duarte, who scored 27 points, 6 of 9 from 3. He was incredible. I think is the only way to put that. I think he maybe in the fourth quarter became a tiny bit of a liability, but most of the game he was what kind of propelled the team, at least early on in their big lead.
Can I share with you, Adam, a stat that I tweeted during the game? You may have already seen this.
I probably have, but go ahead.
Mostly for the listeners. Okay, let's go back to the Pritchard era to really hammer home how big Chris Duarte's first ever NBA game was. TJ Leaf's rookie year, his best scoring night as a rookie was 17 points. Aaron Holiday's best scoring night as a rookie was 19 points. Goga's best scoring night as a rookie was 13 points. Duarte had 16 at halftime of his first ever game. I get that his role was bigger. He finished with 27, though. He was head and shoulders above any rookie we've seen in the Pritchard era in terms of impact. In one game, he looked very comfortable. Of course, if he shoots that well from 3 every game, he's going to be like an MVP candidate. That's not going to happen, but he was ridiculously good. He looked very comfortable. He fit in well, playing off of the Pacers' best players in that starting 5. It was an extremely promising debut, and I think it's the biggest takeaway from the game. You don't want to get too granular with one game, but with the one guy who's going to be on your team for the next half decade, barring a trade, to see him perform that well in his first ever NBA game ever was so impressive.
Yeah, he came off very un-rookie-like. He was just like there was one play, I'm trying to remember what it was. They fed him on the out-of-bounds play. They were kind of feeding him in ways that you don't do a rookie. He was like, they let him have some leeway where he could like dribble into kind of like that bank kind of jumper from 10 feet that he's really good at. Like, it was just like they just trusted him in a way I don't think most teams ever could trust a rookie in that, even in their first game, no matter how good they are. We don't know if this is going to be like, obviously he won't be, a 66% 3-point shooter like you said, but there is just an air about him that makes me feel like he's definitely going to be an NBA player. And what I'm really excited by was, you look at the top 3 scorers for the Pacers, Brogdon, Sabonis, and him. They combined for, I think, if I did my math right, 88 points. Imagine when you throw in Karis LeVert and Warren to a lineup with those 5 guys. That could be 120 points from a starting lineup. That could be crazy.
Yeah, he supported those 2, Brogdon and Sabonis, who combined for 61 on their own very well, which was extremely impressive. And his defense was pretty good too. It wasn't awesome. I would rate it as average. He had a few rebounding blunders, especially a very important one at the end of the game. But his defense was still good at times, which was good. He's a great fit with the starting 5 in his current role, and he showed why in the first game. And we saw in the preseason that he had one great game against the Cavs and one not so good one. And I say that to say, I'm not going to expect this from him every day. And I've admittedly maybe been too much beating this in that I don't think rookies ever are good in their first year in the NBA. But Duarte certainly was very good in his first game. And if he can continue to play like this, I mean, the Pacers are going to have to start him every game, and they're going to have to continue to find a way to make him very involved because he was excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get to some bad, because it was not the Pacers' best game. It was, to me, reminiscent of a lot of last year in that way in some ways.
You stole my story of the game moment there.
Yeah. So here's the thing I would say. In that first half, they exceeded even the best they were going to be, right? So you knew at some point their three-point percentage wasn't going to be, I think they were 10 of 19 at the half, like 52% from three. Like they're not going to do that in a full game. So you knew they're going to come back to earth. But man, they came crashing really hard in that third quarter. Gave up basically a 23-point lead in that third quarter. And that third quarter is why they lost this game. And it's frankly just like reminiscent of last year's team, and a reason why they not having a kind of go-to score is really starting to bite them in the butt right now.
That's kind of exactly how I wanted to talk about that third quarter. It was so reminiscent of last year, both in the fact that it was in the third quarter, the third and fourth quarter where the Pacers bad too last year, and the Pacers did pick it up in the fourth. They did almost walk away with the win. We'll talk more about all that, but I wrote down the timing, Adam, because we talked about this with Bjorkgren all the time. There was always every game there was one 6-minute stretch where the Pacers were just terrible, and it cost them the game all the time. And so on Monday, we talked about that. How can Carlisle prevent that from happening? Well, in game one, he didn't prevent that from happening. 8:48 to go in the third quarter. The Pacers were winning by 21. They were up 21 points. 2:46 to go in the same quarter. They're down by 3. And then they win the game the rest of the way from that 2:46 point on. But it didn't matter. That 6-minute stretch,
28-4 run, right?
That 6-minute and 2. Yeah, 24-0 run for Charlotte. Pacers couldn't score. They went away from getting the ball to Sabonis in the deep post, where he was dominating in the first half. He even said after the game when I asked him about that he needs to be more vocal on the court and say, guys, give me the ball down here. This was working in the first half. They were not as aggressive. Carlisle noted that as a problem. Brogdon also kind of noted that, and he noted their defensive execution, especially in transition, wasn't as good. A lot went wrong at the same time, and that just can't happen. Like, if they were so good in the other three quarters, they looked like the far superior team for 42 minutes of this game, and then they were just like a high school team for the other 6 minutes, and they lose. And it was so reminiscent of last year, and it was so painful. It was such a terrible way to lose your first game of the season, because we could be talking about a lot of the positives that came out of this game, but you can't when it's overshadowed by just an unbelievably bad 6-minute stretch.
So how much do you think of the 8-man rotation contributed to that? I mean, I know they weren't going to go super deep, but the fact that they only went with 8 players, I mean, you got to think they were a little bit tired. I mean, you could see it. They moved the ball really, really well in the first half, passing around, moving around, 4 or 5 touches each possession from each player. They passed it around, and then felt like they just got stagnant, right? They were settling for threes that were kind of half open. They weren't trying to penetrate as much. I mean, it's a lot of bad looking plays. Like there was one point where McConnell tried to hit a 3 to get him out of the rut. And that's just Charlotte would love you to take that shot. They're just begging you to take those kind of shots. I mean, it felt like there was just a little bit of exhaustion, but then they got it back in the fourth quarter. So I'm not sure it played that much into it now that I talked it out.
First of all, on the rotation in general, Carlisle said after the game, he wasn't planning on going 8. It just kind of happened. Flow of the game kind of stuff, and he thinks he'll play more guys on Friday. We'll see if he follows through with that, early feeling out of coach and how much you can trust what he says. But yeah, I don't know how much that was a factor because they picked it up so much in the fourth quarter. To me, when I was watching, it was that thing I just said about they just went away from Sabonis so much. He was still screening a lot, but Brogdon and Lamb, and we got to talk about Lamb at some point today. But Brogdon and Lamb and McConnell took that 3, and Torrey Craig, I think, took 2 threes. They just didn't. They settled a little bit, and then those misses lead to transition for the Hornets, and they're a really good transition team. They capitalized on it, and when you're not making shots, it makes defense harder. It all just kept snowballing, and they couldn't get out of it. They went away from what was working, and they finally got out of it eventually. They got the lead back in the fourth, but you shouldn't ever win a game when you give up 24 consecutive points to the other team, and they found out the hard way.
Yeah. I feel what does either O'Shea/Goga have to do when Turner has 3 fouls and Duarte goes out with an injury in that second quarter to basically get in the rotation, right? That just seemed really right. I mean, you could say everybody.
Isaiah.
Yeah, anybody really, but I mean, I guess those two to me are probably the next 2 guys up. just because, you could make a case of if everybody was like fine, there was no injuries, there was no foul trouble. Yeah, sure, but like Turner had foul trouble. Oh, how much time was it? I think it was like 8 minutes left in that first quarter. He went out. Maybe it was less than that. And then you had Duarte that basically for about 4 or 5 minutes in the second quarter as well. That should have been a time to go to somebody else besides those 8 guys. I mean, you could see at the end of the game they got the energy back, but it was, I don't know, it just felt like that was some of that was exhaustion.
On offense.
But we saw some of that last year too, right? The team felt like when they had so many injuries, they would stack up, they'd be exhausted with their second units, wouldn't be able to hold. And you had some of the same issues, I think, just because of that.
100% agree. I would have gone more guys myself. I've been an advocate for playing O'Shea for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I'm not going to hammer that to death after one game because he did say he'll expand the rotation a little bit. But especially even, okay, you're in this atrocious fourth quarter stretch where you have admitted and the team has admitted defense is a large part of the problem, along with being somewhat flat. Like, get your energy big in there. Like, even if you don't think Isaiah deserves rotation minutes right now, that's why you go with 8 guys. Give him 2 minutes. Just let him run around like a crazy rookie for 2 minutes. Put a spark in your team. I would have done that myself. I don't want to harp on the rotation too much because I don't think that was why they lost. But, it's certainly something to talk about that. After a preseason where he was experimenting and playing a ton of guys, he goes to 8 in the first game. It's just something to talk about.
Yeah. All right. So here's how I want to do the next part of the show. I've got some overreactions that I don't think you have that many because you don't necessarily like to overreact, but they'll tie into the game, and I want you to we'll play off them. But first, let's take a quick break. Because today's Locked On Pacers podcast is brought to you by McDonald's, who's proudly serving their communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they have dependable Wi-Fi and an endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's the place where your teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's a place you can always look forward to stopping on a long road trip to rest your legs and to refuel. I know for me, McDonald's is a great place I stop on travels, get a Diet Coke, get, refill some fries, whatever it is. It's like my number one stop right before you head for a long road trip. McDonald's is great, and that's why you should try it today. I want to give a big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. As they say, McDonald's, I'm loving it. All right, you said you want to talk about Jeremy Lamb. My first overreaction to Jeremy Lamb is, well, maybe it's not overreaction. He's still just bad at defense.
Yeah, he was bad at offense in this game too,
yes.
right? Like,
I'll give a break on that. Like, I figured at some point his shooting will come back, but man, he was a liability on defense the same way he was last year, frankly.
Well, but even last year we harped on this a lot. Like, part of the thesis with him is last year when he couldn't get to his spots as much, his defense was so bad that he had to be an insanely good 3-point shooter to make up for that and be even a neutral last year, right? So this year his defense is just as bad. He can get to his spots still, so he has a better chance to make up for that liability. But he didn't even get close in this game. He was 1 for 9. He only made 1 3 out of 6. And yeah, he went back to the same. We saw immediately the same Jeremy Lamb stuff. That was the reason that he was in trade rumors this offseason, that we talked about him not being in the rotation when we talked about a fully healthy Pacers team. We both put him behind Edmund Sumner when we did that exercise, right? And then in this game, he played a lot, and there are injuries in front of him. I get why he played. His preseason was okay. Rick Carlisle very clearly trusts him. He closed the game. That's not part of this overreaction exercise, but that was just
it's fun,
flummoxing to me. But yeah, he was not very good. He was terrible defensively, terrible on the glass, like he was last year. He has to be better in those two categories if he wants to play more. And remember, like, part of the reason I don't know how much of this they're doing, but remember, J. Michael reported that part of the reason they want to play him more is to get his trade value up. Games like this will not do that. So one of my overreactions is going to be about him, and that's that there's a chance when Karras is back that he is out of the rotation still, even with Sumner off the team, because he did not help them win in this game. Carlisle, again, clearly likes him to some degree, and so maybe he'll play it as the backup to like 15 minutes or something, but if he plays like that, I can't imagine him being in the rotation for a super long time this season.
Yeah, to not completely harp on him too much, he did at the end of the game have one nice play. He missed that 3-point shot, and he got back really fast and actually
stripped. Yeah, he stripped.
I forget who it was.
Kelly Oubre to the basket.
Yeah. So he did have one nice defensive play. I didn't mark that. I'm like, wow, that's the kind of play they won the game. You point to, oh wow, he actually missed the shot, hustled back, and made a decent play. But
You know what he did on the very next possession?
I don't remember now.
A terrible closeout, and then he got blown by, and then there was a foul.
Okay, so I just that one stuck out because it was so out of the ordinary. Usually he swipes and hits the guy, but I think he actually timed it right. Do you have a reaction you want to do? You want me to keep throwing some more because I can time?
Keep going.
Okay, so my other overreaction, and let me pull up the number to make sure I have it correct. Are the Pacers better at rebounding? Are they low-key kind of good now? And most of that is part of that. Torrey Craig, who had 8 rebounds, and I thought pulled some tough in traffic rebounds. They had a couple good offensive rebounds. Like, did Carlisle, harp on it or what? Or are they going to be a better rebounding team this year? Because last year that was one of their biggest weaknesses, where they just could not grab rebounds.
Torrey Craig took 4 shots. That is perfect. Mwah. Perfect.
Yeah, that also
number.
helped. He was really good tonight. I was really impressed by him, frankly.
Yeah, I might get to him for an overreaction, but yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit, and I brought up Lloyd Pierce's comments to me earlier in camp a few too many times in the show. But one of the things he liked about Torrey Craig when he coached him on the Team USA select team, or when he was with Team USA in Vegas, was beyond the defense, he was a good rebounder, right? And Duarte as well is a good rebounder for a guard. He had 5 in this game, which was impressive from him. Justin Holiday had 6, right? Like, a big problem for the Pacers last year on the glass was their backcourt, right? And Turner's never been like the best rebounder at his position, but beyond their centers being net slightly above average last year on the glass, they had like the worst rebounding backcourt in the league. Craig was great on the glass in this one. Duarte was solid. Justin Holiday was solid. So I think they'll be a better rebounding team this year. And Adam, a show I did solo without you last week, I brought up their preseason stats because they were 6th after 3 preseason games in rebounds in the preseason. So there's clearly more of an emphasis on that. And you can even see on offensive possessions, they crash the offensive glass a little harder. I will say, though, they did kind of get punked in this game by the Hornets, who got a lot of offensive rebounds, Mason Plumlee and PJ Washington specifically. So
that was one possession too, where they gave 4. Remember the start of the third quarter? They had so that there's kind of a padding of stats there if they're all happening at once.
So they won the rebounding battle, and I agree with you that both from personnel and emphasis, they will be a better rebounding team this year. So I think that's a good overreaction. But they also had some troublesome moments in this game on the glass. So finding that balance throughout the season will be important.
Yeah, I just was just so impressed with Craig. I mean, I thought he
agree.
Did a decent job guarding Hayward for the best he could do. Like he it wasn't perfect, but he did the best he could. He was basically the Pacers' go-to defender on the best player. It seemed like he made clutch free throws that if they won the game in not the foul down the game, that he would have basically hit the game-winning free throws. I mean, that's a guy who's not a great free throw shooter. That was pretty clutch. And he just there were a couple of he just pulled out that I was like, oh, this is why they got this guy who's 6'7", long arm, big body, because he can fight in for those rebounds. Or he had a couple even one where he tipped him back out with guys on the offensive end. It was something we hadn't really seen from that spot. One, because we didn't see Warren last year at all, and 2, because that's not what McDermott was good at, right? McDermott was not that kind of rebounder when he played the small forward spot. He really either is Justin Holiday. So that's I was just impressed by him. I thought he was maybe it's another reaction, but I just thought he had a really good night. And now I kind of see now why the Pacers got him, because he does a lot of the other non-scoring stuff pretty well.
Yeah, he's in my notes a few times in this game, but good passing and rebounding earlier was the first note I had from him. The rebounding, a little expected given what we've heard from coaches and what we've seen from him in games, but the passing was good because he wasn't taking as many shots. Like I said, 4 is the perfect amount for him. And this is a subtle praise of him, but he made his first 3, right? And a lot of guys, when they make their first shot, have that little okay, yeah, I got it, and he missed the next 3 shots and he's like, okay, I'm done. He realized it wasn't his night after making that first 3 and played within the team concept very well. So yeah, he was definitely, especially compared to his preseason play, impressive in this game. And I agree with you that he could be a big factor in them being an actually decent rebounding team this season, which is not something we've seen from the Pacers since we've been doing this show, honestly.
Yeah. All right. I got another one for you.
Okay, keep them rolling. I only have one actually good one. So
we'll get to yours on the first part of the next segment then. But this one is Sabonis, good 3-point shooter.
Oh man, I knew you were gonna bring this up.
I know. I had 4 of 6. I think he does last year in the first game too. Although his shot looked better, just the way he shot it looked a little bit cleaner. He didn't bank in any 3. I think he switched them all from what I remember, at least 3 of them.
Yeah, bank 3s changed this game, by the way. The Hornets had 2 of those.
Yeah, but Sabonis, the bank 3, I always feel like is kind of lucky in some ways, right? Like, I don't know, you
Yes.
can like try to bank a three. Maybe LaMelo Ball can. I wouldn't doubt him to be able to do that, but like from a center especially. But Sabonis just like had a couple of clean threes. And it also his 3-point shooting basically got them back in the game. They were down 8, I think, right? They were down 8 or 10 points with 6 minutes left. He had a big three to go into timeout, and then he had a big
2
three
big
to go up.
threes. Yeah.
Yeah, we had the big three going into the timeout, and then he had a big
That's
three
right. That's
to
right.
put the team up 1. Yeah, I mean, his shooting seems like an actual like threat as of right now. I mean, we'll see if it holds, but he does seem to have like a cleaner. I mean, we've seen it in like those practice videos they show, right? Where you watch him like playing against scrubs, he just drains 3 after 3. Well, we saw a bit in the game, which I was impressed by. I mean, and him overall was impressive.
You know me, I'll always believe it when I see it with guys going from not good shooters to good shooters. But
Well, he didn't go from
4 for
not
6
right.
is good. Hang on, let me get to it. Being 4 for 6 is good. His form is slightly different. It's just faster, I think he said when I asked him about that specifically, which is still an improvement. And he said after the game today, because Scott Agnes asked him about hitting 4 threes. That's not something Sabonis typically does. I don't know if he did it a single time last year. I'm going to pull that up while I'm talking. But he said like Carlisle talks to him and Turner a lot about like, get those threes up, get those threes up, work on your 3. Correct. He did not hit 4 threes a single time last season, right? So this is his first time hitting 4 threes in the last 2 years for the Pacers. So it's an emphasis from the coaching staff to tell him to take more. He said he worked on it this offseason as a way to develop his game, and it was the clear like next progression for him offensively. So I think it's possible that he's a better 3-point shooter this season. I'm still not sure where he'll land on that scale, but definitely an encouraging start in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they also did a really nice job with him. They fed him in the post early, and he just feasted on Plumlee for a while. They clearly had decided that was their most efficient, best offensive play to start the game. And they went to it like over and over again the entire first half. He was really good tonight. I mean, he was
excellent,
Yeah,
fantastic.
like, I don't know yet whether that's why I'm making an overreaction. Like how much his offense has improved, or just he's maybe just going to be like slightly like he's always been a guy who can like go 9 of 11 and a half. Like he's always been that player. So we'll see him be consistent all year, kind of at that high percentage. But I did feel like he's made a slight jump offensive. Like it's just a slight increase from last year, which already was a jump the year before. Like just feel like he's getting a little bit better at offense each year. We see him.
Yeah, that would be huge for him to get even better at offense. And it's certainly encouraging when you start off with 33 and 15. I will say 2 assists from him only is interesting, but I don't. He's not in the situations as much as he was last. Like we've talked about how a lot of his assists are handoffs and like little pitches and stuff, and 2-man game, and there's a lot less of that with Carlisle's system.
Yeah.
So the early indications are that his assists could go way down. Maybe that's one of my overreactions is that Sabonis assist numbers will go way down, but his scoring opportunities are good and good for him, and he was awesome on the glass again. So yeah, he was excellent.
I wonder if some of that is he just was such a high turnover guy last year, whether they decided maybe it's better not to put the ball in his hand as much. Maybe instead of just
well, speaking of high turnovers, he had 6 of them in this game. So
yeah, well that's what I mean. But like if he was passing the ball the way he passed it last year, he might have had 8 or 10 because he was a really high turnover guy when it came to passing last year, I thought.
Right.
All right, let's do this. Let's take another break, and then we'll go to one of your overreactions and a couple more thoughts, overreactions, and whatnot that I have. But first, today's Locked On Pacers podcast is also brought to you by Calm. Do you want to know what makes LeBron James King James? Sleep. That's right. Sleep is his superpower. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation and has teamed up with LeBron James to help activate the power of sleep. When it comes to athletes, we tend to focus on physical fitness, but there's another side of the game, and that's just as important, and it's mental fitness. Calm, the #1 sleep app for meditation, and LeBron James can tell you about why mental fitness is just as good as physical fitness. LeBron and Calm know that your mind is like any other muscle in your body. You have to be a world champion and learn how to train it. Calm can keep your brain so you sleep better, reduce stress, and perform your best, just like King James. For LeBron, sleep is a critical part of his mental fitness routine. So if you head to calm.com/LockedOnNBA for a limited time, 40% off a Calm premium subscription. That's calm.com/LOCKEDONNBA for a 40% discount on the Calm premium subscription. Unlock content to help your focus, ease stress, and sleep better. Get started at calm.com/LockedOnNBA. That's calm.com/LockedOnNBA. And we're also brought to you by our wonderful friends over at SweatBlock. For a few weeks now, we've been talking about SweatBlock and how these wipes can help you stop sweating for 7 days. And it seems like people have been listening, because we've got a lot of people chiming in about who tried SweatBlock with our Locked On code. We have a story here about a high school teacher. When he pit out by fourth period, he'd hear the snickers and whispers from his students. So he started bringing a second shirt to change in between classes. Then he heard about SweatBlock on our program. He tried it and now hooked. No more stickering, no more second shirt. We heard from a soccer player who has another success story. He's an avid player and he heard us talking about SweatBlock and thought it was too good to be true. But he was always the wettest guy after practicing games, like soaking wet. So he thought he'd give SweatBlock a shot. He tried it on his pits. The next practice and his pits were dry while everything else was wet. Guess he should have tried on his other parts of his body. He says he didn't have to reapply for 9 days. Now he's a true believer. There you go. Locked On listeners loving SweatBlock, which can stop excessive sweating for 7 days. It's doctor created, doctor recommended, dry shirt guaranteed. No more armpits, chest, back, feet, hands. Use it anywhere that sweats and you can deal with your excessive sweating. Right now, get 20% off when you go to sweatblock.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, or you can find SweatBlock at Amazon and CVS. All right, Tony, what's your one overreaction since you don't like to have a lot of these?
Yeah, I'm not good at these. I am admittedly not good at these. Okay, Malcolm Brogdon is the hurdle here, but my overreaction is Chris Duarte is already the best pull-up three-point shooter on the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Brogdon's pretty good at them. I don't want to be
form looks better than
By the way,
Brogdon.
Brogdon once again awesome in the clutch. Like this is why he makes his money. He was not good for a lot of the game, and then when it mattered, he was fantastic. But anyway,
he had 13 points in the fourth quarter. I
yeah.
believe. Yeah. So the thing about Brogdon, he's got to pull up three, but most of his game is never like super clean because he kind of shoots at this sort of weird angle. Where like Chris Duarte just has this like straight up like pull back, step back, pull like three. Right? He did it. I think to Oubre on one of those plays when they were coming back. Like he can just like Duarte can just like pull it from anywhere. It feels like and drain that three, and it looks really clean. Now Brogdon's probably as good as him on those kind of shots, but Duarte's definitely looks better when he takes them.
Here's the two differences. A lot of Brogdon's pull-up threes are one dribble, but the ones that he does do multiple dribbles even, and again, he was good at them in the fourth quarter of this game, he goes kind of in a straight line, right? He'll kind of veer around a screen, but it's like he goes straight at the three-point line, whereas Duarte, there's a lot of side to side, and he's pulling back and away from guys and around guys. And they're harder shots, so maybe don't go to them all the time, but they're valuable to be good at, right? Like guys who are good at them are really hard to guard because you have to be up in their face so far from the basket. And yes, it's one game. We are massively overreacting. That is the point of this podcast. There's a chance Chris Duarte goes 0 for 6 against the Wizards on Friday, and then I'll never talk about him being a good pull-up three-point shooter again for a while. But I mean, the signs are there, even from preseason, that that's a shot that he has, and that's a very valuable shot to have. It's part of the reason he was incredible in the Pacers' first game of the season. So I think that's something he can go to often. If the Pacers are a little stagnant, just give him a shot at it. You know, we know he can do it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, you ready for another one of my overreactions?
Go for it.
This is kind of a twofold one, but one is Sabonis starting to get superstar kind of calls on the free throw line. And what I mean by that, although to be honest, it kind of went away after the first quarter, so that was maybe the first quarter reaction when I wrote it down. But overall, the team took 24 free throws, slightly more than last year. It felt like they were doing a little better job in general. Are they going to be a higher free throw shooting team? I'm thinking that could be some signs I could tell that.
Getting out free throwed by the Hornets is embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie. They Pacers have just since Pritchard took over basically, and I kind of use that era loosely because that's kind of when we started doing this podcast too. So I've been more lasered in on stats in that era than other eras of the Pacers in my life. Too many words to say that for a while now they've been just not good at getting to the free throw line. Outside of Vic, they haven't had a guy who's awesome at it. Brogdon got up 9 in this game. So he's been pretty good at it. But yes, that'd be the biggest step for Sabonis like possible, right? That would make him so much more deadly. And he was great at it in the first quarter. He had 10. What did he have? 10 of their first 12 points or something like that. I mean, they couldn't stop him, so they kept fouling him. So if he can get to that level where he's getting 6 or 7 free throws every game, that's huge for how hard he is to guard and how efficient the Pacers offense can be.
Yeah, the team overall took 24, which last year they averaged 20, year before about 19.
24 is still like bottom 10 though, I believe. I'll check.
I'm sure it is, but we're talking about the base from last year, just them being better than last year, frankly.
Yes.
No, and I think in the first half, and a lot of this was like in the first half, they did such a good job of everything, but they got the line, I want to say they got the line 16 times in the first half, or close to that number. So they risk when their offense is flowing, there's clearly some like common themes, and one of them is just being able to move the ball around and get to the line, and that's something they just didn't do well in that third quarter, especially. But I do wonder if they're going to be more focused on the rebounding, particularly, and the free throw, and trying to get the free throw line than they were last year, at least.
Extremely wrong about free throws, by the way. Last year, 24 would have gotten you 5th in the whole league. So,
I thought you were saying I was extremely wrong. So now I feel better.
No, I am extremely wrong. I
feel better about it.
They finished 26th last year at 20.7, but the gap between like 8th was the Nets at 22.5. Like the gap isn't that huge. That said, that's still a lot of free points.
Yeah, I mean,
free throws a game.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 3 extra points, that's probably the difference between 34 wins and 40 wins, or maybe not that much, but 38, something like that.
Yep.
It's probably 3 or 4 points per game is an extra 3 wins at least.
Yeah, right. I can't really overreact to Jeremy Lamb because we already have talked about him. So this maybe isn't an overreaction, but I think that the Pacers will be a good end-of-game team. I need to make it an overreaction. They'll be a really great end-of-game team. They're going to be one of the best end-of-game teams in the league. I think they'll be a good end-of-game team based on this performance. It's one performance, overreacting. I understand that conclusions are bad from one game, but they played very well for the last 5 minutes. They were losing when the 5-minute mark actually crossed. They took the lead several times in that stretch. They did blow it. Some weird fouls in the last 10 seconds of this game, but
yeah, that was not a foul on Torrey Craig.
No, Torrey Craig got extremely lucky.
Yeah, and then they kind of
the Pacers were a rebound away from winning this game. They had it. They really had it.
So,
but that's what to say. Like they defended the Hornets what they drew up when they were up 1 with 10 seconds left pretty well, and then they just botched the rebound and fouled, and then they were losing. And then they called the Bjorkgren play kind of where Sabonis catches it backing down.
Better look than Bjorkgren's usually, but
fakes. But yeah, it was the first couple times that Bjorkgren got success from it, but Sabonis got a decent looking 11-footer and missed it. But the part of the reason I'm kind of bullish on their end of game, beyond that it went kind of well, is Carlisle comes up to the stand, and first of all, he's the first coach that I've covered that does this. He does opening comments. He doesn't before questions even come. He talks about things that he's kind of expecting us to want to know about. And he talked about the end of the game play, and he said, that's on me. Like, if we don't score on a play that I call, that's my fault, right? It's not on them. That's my fault. And Sabonis was very close to making it. But the fact that he has that level of accountability and, that attention to detail of clutch moments and X's and O's, I think bodes well for the Pacers in clutch situations this season. And we heard in the NBA GM survey, all these coaches talking about, and praising his tactical skills. And, we've kind of known this stuff, but just to see it for the first time, I have more faith than I did before the game that the Pacers will be a good, close game team this season.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't mind that Sabonis look. I mean, that's the shot I would.
I liked it more than the consensus on the internet too.
Yeah, to me, so you made a case. Certainly, you try to get Brogdon a shot. I mean, that obviously, but it seemed like the Hornets were kind of they're over committing to Brogdon because they kind of thought the ball was going to go to him. You're also without Warren and LeVert. That's like 2 extremely good weapons at any time. So basically, it was either going to go to Brogdon or Sabonis. So you didn't have as much options in your arsenal. So I didn't mind that. The other fourth quarter thing though, I found kind of, I don't know if it's odd. I don't know what to make of it, but they basically didn't play Turner at the end of the game. And they brought him cold. The defensive position wasn't his fault in the foul. He actually made the block if they didn't call the foul.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't necessarily always like bringing the guy cold in off the bench. I get why they did sort of, but I mean, did you? I said I don't have an opinion on it. Did you like or didn't like them not playing Turner in that fourth quarter? Really?
Didn't like because Jeremy Lamb was in, right? You definitely rather have Turner than Lamb in, to me, down the stretch with how Lamb was playing in this game.
But did you think in that third quarter part of their issue was the fact that the Hornets kind of went smaller and destroyed that bigger lineup? Because I thought that was kind of maybe what Carl was reacting to, at least.
No, not really. I mean, he said he took out Turner for fouls in the third, which I think he only finished with 4, so maybe he was a little too conservative with that decision. But no, I thought the third quarter was just they went away from what was working, and maybe that is again because of the lineup they had in, like you just said. So yeah, I don't want to dismiss.
I mean, I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about it
just specifically about the end, though. I mean, I don't get why Jeremy Lamb was in at all. He wasn't even the guy taking that many shots, right? Going through the last 2 minutes. Okay, Lamb takes the first shot hilariously, but then Sabonis takes a shot, Brogdon takes a shot, Craig takes a shot, Brogdon takes a shot, Craig gets fouled, right? They're not even going to him, and his defense isn't good enough for him to be out there to me. I don't get it. I don't
know if this was asked, but I wonder if some of it is Jeremy Lamb with his ankle injury is maybe semi on a minutes, don't want to push it too hard because he ended up playing 26 minutes, which is probably what you want of a guy who's got a kind of
that is sore certainly ankle. Possible. That is
right, because I think in most
you said Lamb, by the way, he meant Justin Holiday.
I meant Justin Holiday. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes, that's what I meant. Because I think normally that's who if you're not going to go with the Turbonis pairing, my guess is you would close with Holiday in that situation, just because he's a little better defender, maybe a lot better, and has a track record of being a better 3-point shooter. He wasn't that better 3-point shooter tonight for the Pacers, but has a track record of being a guy who hit an open three at a pretty good clip. Well, so I wonder if that was part of it. I mean, we have to remember the Pacers, like I said, are severely down. Like they're down 2 starters. Their 6-man just came back after a pretty iffy ankle injury that we don't know like how healed it really is. If we're just kind of playing through it.
So 7th man came back from a wrist injury too, and he was 1 for 9.
Yeah, well, and then you have that, and then I'm not sure how much they feel they can trust. Like Isaiah Jackson to play in a game yet. Goga they clearly don't trust yet. So I mean, it's just like they didn't quite have all the weapons. This would have been a nice win to get because I don't think New Orleans played that particularly well either, except for that third quarter.
Charlotte, yes.
Charlotte, my God, wow, all over the place right now. It's the end of the podcast and towards the end of the night. I don't think they played that well, so it would be nice to get this win. But I think when we look back at it, you probably chalk it up to a lot of those reasons. If they end up with a decent record, like, oh, that first game was just X, Y, and Z led to it, frankly.
Yeah, I have 2 things to respond to what you just said, and then I'm kind of out of thoughts from the game in terms of overreactions. But to your point about the closing 5 and maybe having Justin out there, like the way this game was going and who was playing well, Duarte, Brogdon, and Sabonis are locks to be in the closing 5, right? Like, those are 3 choices.
They scored 88 of the team's 122 points. They scored like 2/3 of all points. Of course, they're going to be in the game.
And then Craig was playing awesome defense and making good decisions on offense. So he seems like the obvious 4th in a 1-possession game because you can have him in on both ends and go, yes, you're giving us positive contribution. So who's the 5th guy that makes the most sense around that group? I would have put Holiday and Turner for different reasons over Lamb in that situation. So
maybe McConnell? No?
I don't know. McConnell was just kind of
Yeah, he was kind of
in this game. Well, he always, this happened his first year with the Pacers and then under Bjorkgren. It takes him like 2 or 3 games to really get the system and timing down, and then he really takes off. I actually talked to him about that 2 years ago, and I did a story on him. So he's not a slow starter. Like, he's very dedicated to playing well, but it's possible that it takes McConnell a few games to really look like the guy that we're like, oh, yeah, there's that little pest. And the other thing you said that I want to talk about is, like, I actually think that this isn't like a big deal. It's 1 loss. No 1 loss is ever a big deal, but I am a little more of a guy who's like every game is important to some extent than most people. I know it's just 1 regular season game, but given how hard the start of the Pacers schedule is, and they got a back-to-back coming up, like we were joking that they could struggle for their first 7 games before they play San Antonio. Like, getting this win would have been really nice. So it's not like, again, this situation, it's not like unexpected or demoralizing or anything. I think the Vegas line was even. Like, okay, that was an even game, but you would really have liked to win this game as the Pacers, given their schedule and their situation, and then to just blow a huge lead. It's really tough for what they're going to have to deal with going forward.
I am the one who, at the end of our show, maybe on a hot mic, said, "Oh, they might go 0-9 to start the season." So maybe I should overreact to they needing this win. I think the one thing that's made me feel a little better at the start of the season is, one, I don't think Toronto's as good as I thought they were. I think I was kind of reacting to a previous Toronto, concept of Toronto.
Or maybe we'll find out Friday that the Wizards are better than we think they are.
Yeah, that else could be. But my thought is, in the next the first 8 games or whatever, I think Washington's winnable. Both Toronto's and San Antonio are. So they could end up coming down here let's say 3-5 for the year, 3-6. I don't know how many games it is total, but so I'm not as concerned. It seems
no concern. I don't even use that word.
Okay,
I just would have been a nice win to get, given their situation to start the season.
Yes, it would have been a nice win to get, especially if they had managed to because they played so well in that first half, where then if they win the game, you talk about the third quarter a little bit, but you gloss over it more. So
you forget about it completely.
It doesn't haunt you as much as it will kind of, if this team keeps doing this consistently, losing games this way, it will haunt them, right? Where if they just got this win and then they had a couple, so we'll see how Carlisle adjusts to that third quarter, particularly, because that will be the biggest thing, is how does he find, when they need a bailout shot, who do they go to, what do they do, or does he realize it's happening faster and try to get a timeout or whatever?
He did. But, he took a timeout after 3 Hornets makes, and then it still kept going.
Well, they said that on the Pacers broadcast, it's something he likes to do. If a team makes 3 straight shots, likes to get a timeout right away.
I have one more overreaction.
Okay,
it's a stupid overreaction. I'm just mad at. I need to get off the internet during basketball games. No matter when a coach calls a timeout, it was the wrong time to do it. That's what I've learned from fans of basketball teams on the internet.
I will say, Torrey Craig's timeout when he's falling out of bounds. Carlo, you could see Carl's reaction, and he was like, kind of like, you didn't need to do that. It was like with 10 seconds left in the half. I think he was like trying to save his timeout. It's like, oh, like Craig got a rebound, fell to the ground, like was clearly going to get called there for travel or get a jump ball and something like that. And he called a timeout, and Carlo goes, you could like his reaction.
I think Carlisle actually still had that on his mind after the game because in the media session he brought up how many timeouts he had left in the second half when he was talking about the third quarter run. So
interesting.
I wonder if he was like, timeouts are the one thing I can control. Torrey, come on, man. I get why Craig did it.
I get what Craig was doing. Yeah, I get why.
I agree.
But I think it was funny. Like maybe just turn over the ball there.
You just said that.
Yeah, maybe just turn over the ball and move on. Like it's kind of what the timeout was worth more than that.
We're up by 20. There's 10 seconds left. Just chill. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is, I could be wrong. Have they changed the NBA's challenge rules again?
Yeah, I forget what it is for like out of bounds at the end of games or something. I don't remember. I think you can challenge something different, but I don't care about those rules because they're just too confusing for me.
I know, but can you challenge a foul at the end of the game, or what's the rule about that?
Oh, I don't know. Neither team did, which I thought was interesting.
Well, I thought the Pacers would just maybe throw it against the wall with 4 seconds left because why?
Yeah,
why not?
But again, I thought Borrego would when Torrey Craig got.
I know, so that's what I was trying. I'm like, did they change the rules again on me that I don't remember now? Because it feels like every year that
this podcast has just been us going. Oh, one more thing for like 12 minutes now.
No, but that was my last thing. I just didn't know if the challenge rules were the same or not. But okay, I think that's all the reactions I have.
I'm out of things. I guess to broadly sum up this game. Like a lot of guys played a lot like they did last year, but maybe a small margin of error, better or worse, and you'd expect a little bit more from the Pacers this year. So I thought they would be better in that third quarter. It just really changes your perception of this team. So we will see how they respond on Friday.
Yes, we will. As always, you can follow this podcast at Locked On Pacers on Twitter. You can get us on YouTube now, Locked On Pacers. If you're new to this show, because you might be catching this for the first time because season opener, I know that happens. We do this show 5 days a week. Usually what happens is we do a weekly show, turn it together, and then we kind of mix and match the week show based on game previews, post games, other stuff. So you can check out that on this feed. We'll have games, basically 5 podcasts a week through the whole season, occasionally holiday, whatnot, right? We're not crazy, but you do take some days off. But so check that out. You can get it as a podcast on YouTube or wherever. You can follow Tony at TeasedNBA and read him at Forbes.com and in the West Side Indianapolis News. You can follow me on Twitter at FreeMadam5. That is all for his Locked On Pacers podcast, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.